Thank you. And welcome. My name is Kirk Kohlenbrander. I'm Vice President and Secretary of the MIT Corporation. Thank you all for joining us here today for what I think will be a wonderful conversation between President Reif and Sal Khan. And we'll follow that conversation with a time for Q&A with all of you. The event was made possible with the help of Start Labs, an MIT student group dedicated to spreading entrepreneurship throughout MIT and other universities. Start Labs helps students create their own companies and helps them work with existing startups. You can check out startlabs.org for more information. I also want to thank General Catalyst Partners, and in particular Bilal and Hamant, for their help in making this event happen. Some members of Start Labs will be helping me moderate the Q&A session that will follow. We're going to be using Twitter for question submissions. So if you want to use hashtag SalMIT, you can send us your questions. So again, it's hashtag SalMIT, one word, to submit any questions that you have for Sal following the conversation with President Reif. We're fortunate to participate in a conversation between those two gentlemen. Let me introduce them to you very briefly. President Reif is concluding his first year as MIT's 17th president. Prior to July 1, President Reif served as MIT's provost for 7 years, and in his final year as provost, we saw two major announcements for MIT on the future of online learning. The first was the launch of MITx, and then of edX, a partnership founded by MIT and Harvard University. For Sal, I first met Sal Khan in the summer of 1997, the end of his junior year at MIT. He was a participant at MIT Leadership, which is a leadership development program that we run each year for approximately 60 MIT undergraduates. The following year, he and I worked closely in a seminar that I ran, and it gave me the opportunity to see the extraordinary creativity and commitment that Sal brings to his work and to his life. Sal graduated the next year in June of 1998 with 3 MIT degrees, 2 SBs, one in mathematics and one in EECS, and an MEng in EECS. And since he was the senior class president at the time, he had the privilege of receiving those 3 diplomas from MIT's commencement speaker that year, who was the President of the United States, Bill Clinton. I mention that because it was just 14 years later, last June, that Sal himself was MIT's commencement speaker. He stood at the podium on Killian Court and talked with our graduates and their families about his career path since MIT that first took him to Silicon Valley as a technologist and then as a hedge fund analyst following an MBA at Harvard Business School. But it was what he did next that put Sal on our commencement stage last June and on this stage today. In 2004, in a side project, Sal began tutoring his young cousin in math, communicating by phone, and using an interactive notepad. Others took an interest, so Sal began posting videos on YouTube. You all know the rest. Demand took off, and in 2009, Sal quit his day job to commit himself fully to the not-for-profit Khan Academy. According to a Forbes article last November, over the past 2 years, the more than 3,400 Khan Academy videos have been viewed more than 200 million times. The site is used by 6 million unique students each month, who have collectively solved more than 750 million problems. That's about 2 million a day. And the material, which is provided at no cost, is formally or informally part of the curriculum in 20,000 classrooms around the world. Sal was naturally a keynote speaker at a summit meeting entitled Online Learning and the Future of Residential Education that MIT and Harvard co-hosted about 8 weeks ago. That summit brought together academic and other online learning experts to consider the opportunities that exist for efforts such as MITx and edX. 60 Minutes recently profiled Sal. Let's watch a brief clip to help complete my introduction of Sal Khan. Here we go.
Take a moment and remember your favorite teacher. Now imagine that teacher could reach not 30 kids in a classroom, but millions of students all over the world. That's exactly what Sal Khan is doing on his website, Khan Academy. With digital lessons and simple exercises, he's determined to transform how we learn at every level. One of his most famous pupils, Bill Gates, says Khan, this teacher to the world, is giving us all a glimpse of the future of education. It all started in 2004, when Sal Khan was working as a hedge fund analyst in Boston, and his cousin Nadia, a 7th grader in New Orleans, was struggling with algebra. He agreed to tutor her remotely and wound up posting lessons on YouTube. They helped Nadia, but then an odd thing happened. Total strangers started using them too.
I started getting feedback like, you know, my child has dyslexia and this is the only thing that's getting into him. I got letters from people saying, you know, we're praying for you and your family. That's pretty heady stuff. You know, people don't say that type of stuff to a hedge fund analyst normally.
So in 2009, Khan quit his job and, working from a desk set up in his closet, devoted himself full-time to Khan Academy. It's a nonprofit with a simple but audacious mission: to provide a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. If that goal sounds far-fetched for a guy working in his closet, consider what happened next.
There's a website that I've just been using with my kids recently called Khan Academy, Khan. Just one guy doing some unbelievable 15-minute tutorials.
I was like, those videos for Nadia, not Bill Gates. I have to take a second look at some of this stuff.
That's right. Bill Gates, one of the smartest and richest men in the world, was using Sal Khan's free videos to teach his own kids. That was just 2 years ago. Today, with the help of more than $15 million in funding, much of it from the Gates Foundation and Google.
So if we get rid of the percent sign, we move the decimal over.
He's amassed a library of math lectures.
12 plus 4 is 16.
Starting with basic addition and building all the way through advanced calculus.
We're taking the limit as delta x approaches 0. It's the exact same thing.
But he's not just a math whiz. He has this uncanny ability to break down even the most complicated subjects, including physics, biology, astronomy, history, medicine. In just a couple of years, he's gone from having a few hundred pupils to more than 4 million every month.
Has it sunk in to you that you are probably the most watched teacher in the world now?
Yeah, I try not to say things like that to myself. You don't want to think about it too much because it can, I think, paralyze you a little bit.
Khan has been able to hire, with competitive salaries, some of the most talented engineers and designers in the country. The Khan Academy office has the intense vibe of a Silicon Valley startup. The team is working to create software they hope will transform how math is taught in American classrooms. Khan Academy has created a dashboard so teachers like Courtney Cadwell can monitor each student's progress.
So right now they're all working on things and you can see that real time.
Yes.
So as you sit here and look at the dashboard, you see how the students are doing individually, you see how they're doing as a whole class,
Yep.
and you can figure out who you need to help.
Exactly. And here I can track their progress over time. I can see who's rushing ahead, who's lagging behind. I can see if they begin to stagnate.
A blue bar indicates a student knows a concept. Orange, they're still working on it. But if a red bar pops up,
Is kind of the red flag to tell me, hey, it's time to step in and intervene. And I can see
Oh, so you can see not only that it's red, but specifically what the
what
problem
they
is.
missed, and you can see the number of seconds they spent on each problem.
Eric Schmidt, the pioneering chairman of Google, says he's seen a lot of failed attempts to integrate technology into education, but says what Sal Khan is doing is different.
Many people think they're doing something new, but they're not really changing the approach. Whereas with Sal, he said, what we're going to do is not only are we going to make these interesting 10-minute videos, but we're going to measure whether it works or not.
He was the guy to sort of make this happen. Why do you think it was him and not some person who was an educator or who had a background in this area?
Innovation never comes from the established institutions. It's always a graduate student or a crazy person or somebody with a great vision. Sal is that person in education, in my view.
But no matter how big or how successful Khan Academy gets, Sal Khan promises he'll never put a price tag on it.
The for-profits have to mold themselves much more to the education establishment than we do. As a not-for-profit, we're just like, what's our mission? To educate children as well as possible. I've said it enough times, and it's in our mission statement, a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere.
How you doing, Sal?
Very good.
That was a pretty cool video there.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, we got all.
Just want to start by thanking you for being with us, Sal. We're really honored and delighted to have you here. So, look, I spent the whole night thinking about the toughest questions I can ask him. So, why don't we start?
Let's go.
So, you were an undergrad and a grad student here at MIT. So, how has that influenced you? What did you take out of being here those years?
Yeah, no, I mean, it influenced me to. I mean, I'm probably speaking for a lot of the folks here. I mean, I went to kind of a standard public high school in Metairie, Louisiana, and you know, I was the first person from, I believe, from my school to ever go to MIT, and it was, you know, one, incredibly intimidating when you come here, but incredibly exciting at the same time. Where you come here and, you know, some of the stereotypes are true. I mean, the people here are incredibly smart, incredibly hardworking, incredibly...
The professors, particularly.
Yeah, I'm talking about the professors, of course, yes. Yes. But I think some of the stereotypes don't hold true. I found that this is one of the most warm places ever. And I really felt like I was coming into a community. And, you know, I'll tell you, you know, within a week of showing up on this campus from Metairie, Louisiana, it, like, opened my mind. It opened my mind to what was possible. You know, you meet students, grad students, professors who don't think in terms of, you know, how do I tactically solve the next small problem? They're solving big problems. They're not afraid of it. I mean, most of the world, if you say you want to tackle a big problem, right, well, you're crazy. But here, you know, you just bump people in the hallway, and that's where they naturally think. They naturally think in kind of the grandest terms. So there's that. I mean, I think this is an intense place. I mean, there's no, you know, sugarcoating that. But that intensity, I think, forms really strong bonds between the people here. And it really, you know, half the time you get a project at MIT, you're like, I'm not going to be able to do that by next week. That's crazy. But then you actually do it. And it really creates a different mindset that a lot of these seemingly impossible problems are actually very, very doable. And actually now when even in the real world now, I can often pick an MIT person out based on kind of an unwillingness to say that they can't do something. So yeah, I mean, I could go on. I gave the I mean, I get watery-eyed when I come here. I mean, it's yeah.
Thank you, Al. Let me just go to something related to that. So it's been a few years since you left, and you've learned quite a bit, and you've done a great deal. Can you think of something that you wish you learned while you were here? I mean, this is kind of an advice for all of us in the room, all of the students here. I mean, something that you wish you had done, you wish you had studied while you were here.
Yeah. No, I mean, I mean, you know, I think everyone who's, you know, 10, 15 years out of college wishes they paid a little bit more attention in one class or two. Now wait, that actually does show up in the real world. But yeah, I mean, I actually, well, you know, one of the, no, I don't have that many regrets, so to speak, from my experience here. I mean, I guess there were good things that I wish I did even more of. I was very active in student government, and frankly, that was some of the best learning that I had here of just, you know, how organizations work, how people work. Yeah, you know, I think, you know, if I had to say one thing, maybe that, you know, I think coming out, you know, I can't critique my path that I took because it got me here, and I'm having the time of my life, and I'm able to pursue my passions. And so one possibility is maybe I could have done that earlier, but I have no regrets about, you know, what happened here. I met my wife here. I have no regrets about that. So yeah,
be careful. She's watching.
No, I know. Yeah. No, we're 10 years in. It's all good.
Great. What do you think is the secret of the success of Khan Academy? I mean, video instruction existed before you, and you came in, and the whole thing exploded with Khan Academy. So, and you triggered a lot of other things, including our own activity with MITx and edX. So, in your view, what's the success? What's the secret of that success?
You know, I don't know for sure. I mean, some of it might have literally been like right time, right place. But, you know, I wasn't the first person to think of video education. You could go back to the radio. People thought that was going to be the killer app in education. Right. You can broadcast lectures, television. Oh, now we can see the teacher. VCR. Now it's on demand. And you know, even in the late '90s, early 2000s, the internet was all about exchange of information. So there was this big boom in, hey, we're going to do online education. I actually credit MIT to a large degree. A lot of people here might not remember, but around 1999, 2000, a lot of universities were partnering and trying to monetize online degrees and their course content. And then MIT essentially laid the gauntlet down in, I think it was 2000 or 2001, and said, no, we think it's our responsibility to share this with the world. And they did open-courseware. And so OpenCourseWare was out in 2000. Even by 2006, when I started making videos, there was already, I wasn't the first person on YouTube. I was probably the 100th person on YouTube to make videos. If I had to guess what allowed it to get traction and resonate, I think, you know, I can't understate the fact that I was doing it for my cousins. The fact that I was their tutor. I had a human connection with them when I was making the videos. I wasn't, you know, I actually think I would have messed up if the first videos I thought I was doing it for Bill Gates. I think I would have fallen to the path that a lot of content creators fall into. And they're like, wow, if 1 million people are going to watch this, if very influential people, I have to make this really professional and perfect. And so what you start doing is you say, okay, I'm going to get a team of script writers. I'm going to get a team of computer graphics engineers, get them together. I'm going to get, you know, James Earl Jones to read the script. Actually, it's not usually James Earl Jones. It's usually the person who created your GPS device. And you know, the end product, you'll see these you know, CGI molecules, and you'll hear the next step in photosynthesis is when the mitochondria, and it sounds like your GPS device. And it's not like something that you can connect with. It looks professional, but it doesn't feel very human. And, you know, some of those early videos, I thought is literally for my cousins. I go, you know, a minute into a problem. I was like, wait. Okay, wait, I had the wrong intuition here. Let me back up. And I left it in there. I said, no, this is just for Nadia, Armand. Armand's coming next year, by the way. He's the second student of Khan Academy. Very, I'm making sure he has some friends when he shows up. But I think that created a human connection. The other people who found it said, hey, this is some guy. Like, it sounds like he's talking to his cousins, because he was talking to his cousins. So very conversational, very focused on intuition. I mean, one thing that I felt growing up, and I think this is probably true of a lot of people at places like MIT who have done well in math and science, is that we, early on in life, were very obsessed with understanding it at a very deep level. You know, when the teacher taught us in second grade how to regroup or borrow, we weren't happy with the algorithm. We just said, wait, why does that work? How can I borrow a 1 from the 8 and make it a 10? Why does that work? And we were answering those questions for ourselves the whole time, not realizing that it was going to pay huge dividends when we get to high school and when we went to college. And for my cousins, I saw that a lot of them might have been missing that in their education, and I was trying to give them that intuition, these connected things between the concepts. So it was that. You know, I think it just might have been the sheer amount of content that, you know, hey, this guy helped me through algebra. Hey, he's got trigonometry videos too. Hey, wait, he's got finance videos and whatever else. So I don't know. It might be all of the above, word of mouth.
I think that's a good lesson. You just described something interesting, which is how you did the videos talking to somebody. So the receiver is actually feeling that you're talking to that person. That's a very unusual. That's a very good explanation. You have said several times that you will only make Khan Academy videos if you have an intuition about how to teach that concept. So can you tell us more about that? And does that limit you?
It does limit. I mean, I will say that there are several topics where I was like, well, you know, this is a topic that a lot of people need to understand. I don't have an intuition today, so I can't do it. But let me spend a week just immersing myself. Sometimes I'm successful, and I say, wait, it's clicking. I can start to draw the connections. I can call up some friends who can help me draw those connections. But sometimes I fail. So for me, I won't make video unless I'm excited about making the video. So one, I have to feel like, wait, I finally get this subject. And organic chemistry was one of them. The first pass, I kind of was able to do it. But I said, look, if I'm going to start making organic chemistry videos, I have to really understand general themes and patterns and intuitions here. And that one, it did click. But you know, I'm still working on quantum physics, and I might have to get some other folks to help. I guess some people have said there is no intuition. But anyway, But yes, so I think that's key, and I think it's also key to really enjoy the subject matter. You know, whenever some people ask me, what's your favorite video? It's like the one I'm about to do. That's the one where my mind is. I'm excited about it. Right now I've been doing a lot of history videos. In my mind, history is the most exciting thing, and it is, that I could be doing. And, you know, earlier today someone asked me, well, you know, what do you do to prepare for a video? And I make sure I understand it at a deep level. I make sure I'm a very visual person, so I try to visually, that's why the diagramming always appealed to me. I always wanted to diagram things. But then I'd say, look, before you make a video, force yourself to smile and force yourself to laugh. And if you do those two things, that energy is going to carry off into the video.
Let's talk about the impact that the Khan Academy may be doing and other outgrowth of that activity to the classroom environment. Do you think we'll ever have a chance or an opportunity to actually change what we do in the classroom? Do you think that would ever happen? And you know, we're trying to do experiments like that. And if that were possible, what will the role of the teacher be in that future?
Yeah, well, you know, the answer, I mean, to some degree, you guys are part of that answer. You know, we started off in 2010 with our first funding, and a local school district reached out and said, what would you do in the math classroom? We said, hey, lecture can happen at students' own time and pace. And this is coming from a guy who made a bunch of lectures. We said, look, we think lecture is not the most important part of the learning process. The most important part of the learning process is problem solving, peer tutoring, doing things with your hands. So the classroom should be about working at your own pace, peer tutoring each other, the teacher sitting next to students, leading students through projects. And so we've started to see these ideas in you know, not more than a handful now of classrooms around the country mainly, but even around the world. And what's exciting is this idea. You know, I've given talks to groups of teachers, faculty members there. No one has actually pushed back on that idea. No one said, no, I think the lecture is the most important part of the learning process. No one has said, oh no, I think all students should learn at the same pace. Never gotten pushback on any of these things. And so hopefully we are, and this idea isn't, it's an old one, this, you know, mastery-based learning, self-paced learning. It's hundreds of years. It probably predates our current school system. And so I'm hoping that we are a catalyst for this to become a more mainstream idea. And, you know, in my opinion, MIT and Harvard and MITx, HarvardX, edX, the reason why it's exciting for a bunch of reasons. One is just dissemination of information, courses, whatever. But if MIT changes what happens on this campus, if Harvard changes what happens on their campus, and the lecture hall over time is not the main focus of a classroom, then MIT and Harvard are defining what excellence is for the rest of the world. Every engineering school in the country looks at MIT and says, what should we look like? The minute you guys say, yeah, we're not giving lectures anymore, I think in 5 years, you won't have an engineering school in the world that gives lectures anymore. As soon as that happens, the high schools say, well, what is excellence? They look at universities like this, say, well, gee, that's the best in the world. We're doing something different. And then they're going to emulate. So I think it'll be from both directions. We're kind of the bottoms up, one teacher at a time. But, you know, there's 30,000 classrooms using Khan Academy now. But you guys are the, you know, everyone wants to wear the jeans that, you know, Jennifer Lopez wears. And that's the kind of, I don't know if that was a good analogy, but that was,
yeah.
I don't know if it's,
you mentioned self-paced learning, Sal. So, you know, I've heard people who are critical of this kind of stuff that we're trying to do, and they say, well, that just really works for motivated students. So what do we say to that? What about everybody else?
Yeah, you know, when I started doing all this, and I was making these resources for my cousins and these exercises and learn at your own pace, I kind of was in that camp. I was like, you know, this is going to work for someone who really wants to learn. I was imagining a 12 or 13-year-old version of me, or frankly, probably most of the people in this room. My cousins were having trouble with a few concepts, but they were motivated. But what we found is, if you let students work at their own pace, and initially, and this is, you know, going back to the last question, we're not saying, when we say learn at your own pace, we're not saying learn by yourself. It's in fact the opposite. Right now, when everyone is learning together, it's actually very isolating. You could be in a room of 300 people, but you actually don't talk to them. It's actually just about you. You know, maybe if you've got some good friends right before finals, you'll have a study group. But during the classroom, it's just about you. You're alone. The professor's way over there. And so when we say learn at your own pace, it's not learn by yourself. So you're in a classroom. Other people can help you if you have problems. The teacher is there. And, you know, I inadvertently sat next to Wendy Kopp of Teach for America a couple of months ago. And I asked her, you know, what is the determinant of your really good teachers? And she said, you know, it would surprise you, it's not the best lecturers. I mean, that's helpful if they can organize information and lecture it. Our best teachers, the ones that consistently move the dial, are the ones that form bonds with students and change the students' mindsets, that coach them to say, look, this is about you and your responsibility of your own learning. I'm here to help you. And so, in my mind, it's not about being alone anymore, and the role of the teacher becomes far more valuable in this world.
I think that's an important message to convey. Now, you mentioned at 60 Minutes about your decision to make Khan Academy into a not-for-profit. That's not a trivial decision. You know, just think of it. Khan Academy could be worth a ton of money today.
I could be dressed a little bit better.
Why did you do it that way?
You know, I'll say, and it was kind of a, I mean, there was a bunch of things going on. I mean, one, and I say this 100% genuinely, the day that I read that press release, and this was in 2001, I was literally, you know, I was working at a startup in San Francisco, and I remember the day, literally, where I read about MIT, like, just taking a stand and saying, look, this isn't about profit, this isn't about it, this is about, and it was almost like MIT did it as a gut reaction. It didn't say, hey, what's going to happen long term? It said, no, we just believe that this should be for everyone. And it did it. And frankly, that was like one of the most proud days of my life. That I was like, wow, I love being part of this community. And when people started to approach, and, you know, and obviously this started with me not thinking. I wasn't, you know, I used to go to dinner parties in like 2006, 2007, and show what I was doing to my friends. And they're like, oh, but how are you going to make money off of this? I was like, no, this is just a hobby. I mean, I have a job. They're like, what's the business model? I was like, no, there is no business model. I mean, I just want to do this. And you know, they're kind of looking, you know, my MBA friends look at me a little suspiciously, like, what happened to Sal? But I was getting so much emotional reward from these letters people were sending. I mean, even today, several of the students here said, you know, Khan Academy helped them get into MIT. I mean, that's better than anything. And so in 2008, there were some venture capitalists that reached out, very good people. But something, you know, the first conversation was always a good one. It was, hey, look, we can give you funding right now. You can quit your job. You can do this full time. We'll always keep this free. And then we'll figure out how to make you know, monetize it. It would be a business. But meetings 2 and 3 did get, they weren't bad ideas, but they just didn't feel right to me personally, which is, hey, well, how about, you know, the algebra stuff is free, but your SAT prep, you know, because that's high value, we can charge for that. Or how about the accounting stuff we can charge for? Or how about we put ads only in this part of the site? And one, that felt a little bit, I didn't feel good. And then on top of that, that forced me to really think it through. I mean, my day job was a hedge fund analyst. All I did is I talked to people about their capital structure, their motivations, who their investors are, what's that making them do. And I thought about, well, and this was delusional at this point. I mean, I was one guy, not even full-time operating out of a closet yet. And I said, well, what's a home run in the for-profit sector? Well, a home run is you grow incredibly fast, and that's good. A lot of people will use the content. And that you either get acquired or you IPO. And both of those things weren't so clear to me as positives. If you get acquired, what are they going to do with the content? Maybe if I'm the owner, I can control it, but what are they going to do? Maybe my kids inherited it. What are my spoiled kids going to do with all of this, this content? They might sell it off or do something. If it gets acquired, it might get put behind some closet someplace and no one ever sees it. And then I thought about, well, what's a home run as a not-for-profit? And you know, thinking of a home run as a not-for-profit is a little bit more of an epic thought process. She's like, well, a home run is, gee, maybe this could be, maybe 100 years, and this was really delusional. This could be like another MIT. This could be like another Stanford. You know, maybe my great-great-grandkids could use this. Maybe in, you know, 500 years, people could still use Khan Academy. And you know, I actually did some, you know, there are no institutions other than not-for-profits that have been able to stay true for their mission multi-generation, multi-century. And that just felt more epic and more cool, maybe able to reach more people. And so that was kind of the initial thinking.
Boy, Sal, with all those answers, let me tell you, we're very proud of you.
No, I'm very proud of you. You're doing very good yourself.
And I'm better dressed, too, right?
No, much better dressed, yeah. You must have had a few exits before.
You mentioned money management before you decided to do this. Did you experience any culture shock? You were spending the day thinking about money, and then the evening thinking about not money.
Yeah.
And eventually you jumped.
Well, you know what's interesting, and you know, when you say hedge fund, it triggers certain neurons in people's brains, and they kind of imagine Gordon Gekko or Boiler Room or, you know, something, you know, these traders and these suits. That was not what I was doing. I was working for one gentleman, Dan Wohl, and his dog, Otto. He was our chief economist. And, you know, we would show up. We would have a bunch of calls scheduled with a bunch of companies of different, you know, one could be an egg producer, the next would be a software company, the next one would be a railroad, next one would be, you know, a retailer, a mall-based retailer. And my job was, and I don't think this was very traditional for a hedge fund, and every hedge fund is different. My job was to lead that conversation. So, well, my job was first to prepare for that, to really understand the egg business through and through, and then be able to talk to the CEO or the CFO of that while my boss was listening and analyzing their business, and I just had a spreadsheet there. And I was analyzing it, and the first half hour was just like, oh, well, this is, you know, this is a fun business, and can you explain it? And the second half hour was like, well, you told me A, B, and C, but that doesn't add up to D, which you've told people, and then letting the CFO hem and haw a little bit, and then me, you know, and then my boss is like, you know, trading, right? But so it was actually an incredibly intellectual experience, because my job was literally every day I had to learn about 5 new industries and communicate about those 5 new industries in real time with the management team and with my boss. And my boss was actually he was in it, I think, more for the intellectual challenge of it than the money. And I mean, in 2008, he could be right now running, he's one of the, you know, I could tell you his returns, it's one of the best returns people have ever seen at a very small scale. He could right now be managing billions of dollars if he wants to. He took time off in 2008 to spend more time with his family because his child had just born. So, you know, we were on the West Coast at 2 o'clock. He used to tell me, look, Sal, it's not about working hard, it's about working smart. Go home, have a life. And if he didn't do that, there'd be no Khan Academy. So the hedge fund I worked for was the exact opposite of what people, it was funny when 60 Minutes came, they're like, oh, do you have some pictures of your hedge fund days? I'm like, yeah, I have a few. No, we want you in like a suit. Like, you know, like, I was like, no, I don't have a suit. And they're like, and I finally dug up that one picture and it was like at a wedding or something. It wasn't me at work. No, there was a funny day where we had investors come to the fund, some of our major investors, and right before they came, my boss came in and it's like, you know, Sal, I'm normally not like, you know, I'm not normally a stickler about this, but, you know, could you at least wear pants? And I was wearing shorts. I mean, I wasn't like, I mean, that would be unprofessional even by my standards, but that would be, yes.
So you do have those standards.
Yeah, I do have some standards.
Yeah. Sal Khan Academy is extremely good at helping people learn. And in fact, as you said, some of people in the audience got to MIT thanks to Khan Academy. But what about credentials? What about just giving a piece of paper that shows them that they actually learned? Do you have any plans for that, or what's your view about that?
Yeah. So that's something that we think a lot about, and I write a lot about it in the book. And one, we do want to explore, you know, you learned algebra on Khan Academy. How do you prove it? And, you know, is there a place where you could take a diagnostic and you know, we can already do that on Khan Academy. We can give you a badge, but maybe it's your older sister taking it for you. So we do want to see, is there a way to authenticate, validate that you were the person? It might be your teacher proctors it, or you do some other technology to do it. But what we want to explore, and I write about this, is, you know, that's only one dimension of what someone is capable of, their academic dimension, their SAT score, whatever you want to call it. But there are other dimensions that are equally, or I would argue more important. One is your ability to communicate and talk to people and teach them. And so we could imagine a reality, and you know, even on Khan Academy today, our profiles, you can see how people have participated in conversations. And oftentimes I go to someone's profile and I'm like, wow, that person is a really, like, you can see they're thoughtful, they can communicate, they understand what the person was asking. So that by itself is already turning into a validation, accreditation, or some type of credential. Right. And then if you got peer feedback on, hey, look, you know, this person is a 9 out of 10 at explaining concepts. If I was a university admissions officer or HR department at a company, I would care about that probably even more than just the raw numbers. And probably the most important aspect is the portfolio of creative works. I mean, now when we hire at Khan Academy, and I'm selfishly here because really I'm hoping to hire at least half of you, the number one thing we care about is what have you made? Can you show us something? Hey, is there an app? Is there a website? And it doesn't even have to be software. Do you have a painting? Even that speaks volumes to us, that you're capable of starting with a blank slate and creating something out of scratch. So the credentials of the future, and we're actually trying to make our profile into this, is yes, it's going to have badges, eventually validated badges that you know algebra or calculus. It'll have evidence that you can participate and communicate with people and contribute to a community. But it'll also have your portfolio of creative works. Even today on our computer science platform, you can create little code and little games and screen, whatever you want. Other people will give you feedback. You know, it's like a code review. Then you put it in your profile. And that, too, I look at people's profiles like, wow, this person, we've actually hired, we're going on 2 people based purely on stuff that they've done on their computer science Scratchpad.
I'm looking at the time, and it looks like I only have time for one more questions before we get questions from other people, for the audience and alumni. You know, you mentioned edX and the online movement and MITx and what we're doing. And how do you imagine a future in which what we're doing in higher education coexist with Khan Academy? How do we help each other? How do we do things that helps society? And what's the impact of all these that you think will have in higher education?
Yeah, you know, and actually our team was just visiting with edX just right before this.
Are you doing any good?
What was that?
Are they doing any good?
I think they're doing a lot of good. Yes, absolutely. And I mean, I think there's a million ways that we can work together and really push you know, our mission is a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. That's edX's mission. We're not for profit. edX is not for profit. We want to be a catalyst for rethinking how classrooms are architected. edX is a catalyst for rethinking how classrooms are architected. So I think there's a lot, you know, edX is right now primarily higher education. We're right now, the meat is still, I would say, in K-12. We have a little bit in the early university level. But I think there's a very natural transition where, you know, students learn on Khan Academy. Are you ready now for an edX course? Maybe you earn something on edX. Maybe that could become part of your Khan Academy profile. You know, there's a million and one ways where I think we can and should try to move this mission together. I mean, we want to work with edX to figure out, and you to figure out, you know, what can classrooms look like at MIT, or what could courses or learning experiences look like in 5 or 10 years. So I'm super pumped about the possibilities there.
Okay, Sal, I'm gonna get off the stage and have Vice President Kohlenbrander to join the stage and receive questions from you. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
No, real honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a look cool like me?
Please sit down.
Yes.
So I'm going to follow up on the question that President Reif just asked you. He asked about the Khan Academy and edX coexisting. And Manhu Lohia has tweeted, but what about the not-for-profit edX and Khan coexisting with the for-profit paid models? So, you know, extending that last answer, what's the role of the for-profit paid models in this general scheme?
So I think it's, you know, I mean, especially in the higher education, you've had this whole MOOC development, massively open online courses, and edX is there. You have Coursera, you have Udacity, and at a high level, it's awesome that all of this is happening. You know, once again, our mission, free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. It looks like that's what everyone is doing right now. So I think that's positive, and the more people that have access to this, the better. So I think it's definitely going to be a model of coexistence. I do think once you start getting into more, for lack of a better word, sensitive areas, you're collecting people's data. This is sensitive data. This could be data that determines whether they get a job or not. This is data on, you know, what their ability levels are on. You know, things like credentials. We haven't seen. I mean, it's funny. Even back in my hedge fund days, I talked to a few of these for-profit, publicly traded for-profit universities, and they talk about all the things that they're doing. That, you know, and I can't judge them. I mean, I haven't been there. They're also very proud about their analytics at recruiting students and getting student loans, and you know, they've obviously gotten into trouble for that. But then I often ask a question, if I really want to put it on the spot: are you sending your kids to this university? And they're like, no. Where's your kids going? You know, Stanford, you know, whatever. And when the CEO of an organization does not want to send their kids to that organization, then that's a. And I'm not saying that that's happening in the for-profit MOOCs. I think the for-profit MOOCs are much more They have a more altruistic mission, but when you have investors, and I saw this at hedge funds, when you have investors, they do want a return. And they will give you a free pass for 2, 3, 4 years, but they won't in year 5. And if they don't you don't agree with them, you might go. So I hope that the for-profits can stay true to the altruistic spirit. I'm not sure whether it'll be able to be maintained, and whether they might not get tempted by, hey, we need to pay our bills. Let's sell this data to a telemarketer. We need to pay our bills. Wait, these people are going to acquire us. Who cares if their other business are X, Y, and Z? So I think those are just some of the dangers that have to be looked out for.
Indeed, and for the record, the Kohlenbrander family are big users of Khan Academy.
Oh, very, very good.
So you mentioned in an answer to a question that President Reif asked you, I think you said that 5 years from now, there won't be engineering lectures at MIT. So what will there be?
I think, did I say that just now?
I think you did.
I think I said if there aren't. I'm not in the position to make that declaration.
It didn't.
The other gentleman who's sitting in your chair is.
On Twitter, quite like when you talked about J-Lo's jeans.
Okay.
The screen just went crazy.
No, well, if that happens,
yes.
And what I believe it should be replaced with is, I think MIT, and actually, Olin College, I think they're really pioneering some of this, and I personally would love to see MIT move in this direction. Everyone here is a creator. I mean, I cringe when someone says, I'm not good at engineering, I'm creative. And you're like, what is engineering? Engineering, by definition, is creating something that has never existed before. There is nothing that someone can major in that is more fundamentally creative. I mean, I read a book like, we need less engineers, we need more inventors. Like, what is an engineer? An engineer, by definition, is an inventor. It's the most creative thing that you can do. But I think it would be amazing if MIT could move in that direction, where when you graduate, I mean, you could have some credentials, I know signal processing, I know circuits, and whatever else. But the really valuable thing is, what did you make? And even today, when we're interviewing candidates from MIT, from Stanford, from top engineering schools, if you get a high GPA, and that'll get past the resume screen. But what really we find intriguing, and we don't really care where you went to, if you could send us some links to some stuff you've made, if you walk in the door and you can show us something, that's what sells us. And I think in the future, that's going to sell more and more people. And so I would love MIT, instead of you go to a classroom with 300 people, and I know that only the introductory courses are more in that way, but even some of the later ones are still lecture-based. Instead, you meet together. Sometimes you do individual projects. Sometimes you do group projects. You collaborate. You do a lot of peer-to-peer. If while building your robot or composing your sonata or whatever it might be, you say, wait, but I need to understand, your professor will walk up to you. It's like, oh, well, this problem's been solved. Go talk to the signal processing guy over there. You're like, oh, really? And then you could use edX or Khan Academy or a textbook or the grad student down the hall. Say, wait, I have this problem. And he said, oh, watch this video and then come back to me if you have some questions. And you watch this. Oh, wait, now I understand how to solve this problem in engineering. You go do it. But it's all about going and building things. And so I think it would be incredible if we're in a reality where everything you do at MIT is fully interactive. You have resources like edX, like Khan Academy, to help you as you see fit. You're working with the professors, working with your fellow peers. And when you walk out, the most important part of your experience, and I'd argue this is already the case, it's just people haven't realized it. Right. The most important part of your experience is what you have made.
And I assume that when you talk to MIT students about those ideas, they get very excited. Right? They have to resonate with this notion of the exciting opportunities that you just described.
I hope so. And I would say that I love this place to death. But I think the one thing that happens here is it's an intense environment. And there is a little bit of like, hey, this is like the Navy SEALs for intellectual work. And I think that's why, frankly, a lot of people here do form the type of bonds that, frankly, I've only seen out of people out of the military. So it's kind of I don't know, I mean, literally, we've been through something together. Yes. But that does sometimes squeeze out the time that you need to say, hey, wait, I've got an idea for this could be a cool invention, or I've got, I have an idea for a novel I want to write, or, I think I can solve that problem in the world. I just read a news story about people who don't have water. I think I have a way to solve that. And so I think you do need space. I call it IAP all the time. And I genuinely, I have to say, some of my most memorable and deepest learning experiences at MIT were during IAP.
Yeah. So one of the questions here is basically, how do you do it? So the question is, what steps or approaches do you use to master such a wide array of diverse topics so deeply? How do you do it?
Well, going back to President Reif's first question, I think what happens here at MIT makes you good at learning fairly dense things in a very deep way, very, very fast.
But you're really good at it.
Oh, well, yeah, well, it's, practice 10,000 hours, all that type of thing. I think I was able to continue that in my hedge fund career. I just described literally every day I would be talking to 5 different industries, and when I got on the phone, that person should think that I am the oil. I literally would introduce myself. Yeah, I'm the oil analyst at Khan Academy, and at Wohl Capital. Then the next hour, oh yeah, I'm the produce analyst at Wohl Capital. Oh, I'm the retail analyst. So I had to talk with that fluency, and so that was also very good preparation. And I think I love learning. I used to, when I graduated, I said, if there was just a PhD in learning everything, I would do that. I was all about doing that. If I could just learn everything. And so, now I feel like I found that job that lets me do that. But yeah, I guess it's, I just enjoy it, and now I'm doing it a lot. So, and I'll also say, people are like, wait, okay, I can understand you doing math and finance and computer science. That's your background. But what about history? Like, come on, Sal. But what, my personal belief is, if you're someone who grew up always wanting to draw connections and always wanting to underline the conceptual understanding, you take that same mindset onto any field of study, and it's going to be able to allow you to digest it. And so, to the earlier question, why do people, why do they like the history videos? I think it's because I don't just say, hey, this happened. I do try to say, well, why would this happen? And this doesn't make sense. And so I think people appreciate that constant skepticism. And I think there's also an advantage sometimes of, obviously there's an advantage of being a deep expert, and we want to get those on the site as well. But there's also, I think, sometimes an advantage of the person who just learned it. And I was like, you know what? I've been wondering for the last week why this is so. I finally figured out, or someone just told me.
Right. No, I agree completely with that. So Benjamin Levy says, can the Khan Academy help close the achievement gap, knowing that Khan Academy environment facilitates learning for self-motivated students?
So there's 2 ways to do it. There's two ways to think about it. One, I said earlier, I don't think it is just for self-motivated students. If you are a student at a Boys and Girls Club in an inner city, we think Khan Academy is actually the appropriate tool. We've been piloting with some charter schools in Oakland, and these were kids entering in algebra, and we saw from the data some of these kids didn't know their multiplication tables. And in a traditional classroom, there was no way for them to address that. They would just get insecure, embarrassed about their weaknesses. They'll disengage from class. We found that if you allow someone to address their weaknesses in a safe way, where they don't have to feel embarrassed, they don't have to raise their hand and say, wait, I don't know what 7 times 6 is. You let them do it in private. We're seeing those students, that 80% of students that most people think are disengaged, unmotivated, become engaged, become motivated, and oftentimes accelerate, and they can become the best student in the class. So I think it's not just, hey, throw a tool at a kid, especially a kid who's already been discouraged in a traditional model for years and years and years and have all sorts of gaps. It's, can this tool be used by other stakeholders in that person's life to allow them to accelerate their learning? On top of that, we do get tons of people who are about to go into community college who say, look, I didn't know math my whole life. I'm going to take ownership now. But there is an issue today. And the one issue is an issue of awareness and access. The unfortunate thing is today, if I go to Google's campus and I say, hey, who uses Khan Academy with their kids, like almost everyone raises their hand. If I go to a parents group in an inner city someplace and it's not a Khan Academy event, and I say, who uses Khan Academy? They're like, oh, 1 or 2 people. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, oh, no, we're a free tutor for you. There are people, the affluent are paying $100 per hour for tutors. We think we can give your kids something for free, so that they can at least start to compete. And, you know, the thing I point out, you know, that Bill Gates can afford tutors, but he still uses, you know, I don't know what else he uses, but, and so we can tell the parent who can't afford a fancy tutor, look, even people who can afford tutors are using this, so this isn't like something that's going to shortchange your kids. And then, of course, there's the issue of just access, broadband access, computer access. I think that's going to be solved very quickly in the U.S. TV and broadband are merging, computation is merging. I think in the developing world, it's going to take, you know, half a decade to a decade for that to become ubiquitous enough.
So that last answer, you said a couple of really amazing things. One is that in the space of one class, you can change a person's life. I mean, you can take a person from being a low achiever, I think you said, to the best in the class. That's amazing.
You know,
and then the second thing is, and yet in this, you don't have to go very far from this auditorium to find communities that aren't even aware of this. So I guess my question to you is, what can we do to help help people be aware, have access? What's MIT's role in all this?
I mean, what I find, what I think would be incredible is, and James, who leads our partnership, actually, James, can you stand up? Is James here? Oh, James is right over there. Yeah. So James leads our partnership, so he's the right guy to connect with on this. But we would love, I mean, if student groups formed around Khan Academy, those student groups could do a million different things. They could work with our schools team, go to surrounding schools and help teachers use Khan Academy. They themselves could become the coaches and work with after-school programs in the area, use Khan Academy, and train other people to use Khan Academy. They can, obviously, you know, we're literally in the mecca of learning of the world in you know, with Boston, you have MIT, you have Harvard, you have so many universities here. They can go and try to get, and it doesn't have to be a fancy, you know, Nobel Prize-winning professor. It could be the students themselves. Let's see if we can generate some content here. Let's see if we can help write exercises. So there's a you know, awareness, content creation, helping teachers make a transition, all of the above.
Okay, well, I took that very much to heart, this notion that our own student groups and other assemblies of people at MIT can make a serious difference. Last question is a complete softball. You must get it asked all the time. What's your favorite lecture?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me why I look like Ray Romano, but that was a... we're cousins. No, favorite lecture. I mean, you know, it's kind of, I don't think I have a favorite lecture. I mean, as I said, literally in my head, my favorite one is the one I'm about to do, which isn't actually an uplifting topic. I'm about to do...
what are you about to do?
The Nazi invasion of Poland, which is not uplifting. But but it's interesting. So yes. I don't laugh before that one, actually. I don't laugh, but that's anyway. But you know, I mean, there's a ton of fun ones. I mean, there's some kind of intellectual journeys. I mean, you know, that whenever we show video montage, we always show the Oilers' identity, and you know, I literally, and it was a spontaneous thing when I was doing the video, and I said, you know, if this doesn't blow your mind, because it really is mind blowing, you know, you have no emotion, and that was, you know, I had known Oilers' identity, you know, since high school, but through Khan Academy, I had the space in my life to actually go through the journey of kind of discovering Oilers' identity and, you know, doing the Taylor expansions. And it is beautiful.
It's beautiful.
You have these puzzle pieces fit together, you know, the trig functions coming from the ratios of sines of right triangles. You have pi, you know, ratio of circumference of a circle to the diameter. You have E, which is showing up of, you know, continuously compounding interest and exponential growth, continuous exponential growth. I, which is like, you know, this thing squared is -1. It just works, you know. These completely crazy things, like, bam, that +1 is 0. Like, you just, you know, I mean, that literally sends chills through your spine. It's like a mystical thing. So me too. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and that's just one. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that I'm rediscovering. I mean, some of them I was already excited about, but I'm rediscovering them. And there are, I mean, some of the math and even the history. You start seeing patterns, and it's mystical, and it's it just gives you chills.
Yeah, thermodynamics, same experience.
It did. It does give me chills.
Same
yes.
experience.
Well, are you trying to be chills? No, never mind. Yes.
Mr. Khan, thank you.
Mr. Kohlenbrander, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Just some quick concluding remarks. First of all, thank you to all of you for coming to this event, an event that was hosted by Start Labs and General Catalyst. Wilmer Hale is hosting a private reception. Those of you with tickets to that reception can head over to the Status Center. We are at capacity on that, so I regret if you don't have a ticket, we can't accommodate. But that will give people, ticket holders, an opportunity to hear a bit more from Sal and from the entire Khan Academy team. As an added bonus, however, I can offer Khan Academy t-shirts in the lobby. They are there. You can pick them up and walk out with them. So once again, Sal, thank you. Thank you to all of you. Enjoy.
Thank you.